Did you know cultism in Nigeria didn't start with guns or blood? Before the guns, before the axes, before the blood on our streets, cultism in Nigeria began with just 7 boys. No violence, no killings, just rebellion and a dream to fight oppressions.
It was here, in this alcove, that it all started. The very first campus fraternity in Nigeria, perhaps in all of Africa. We called ourselves the Pirates, spelled deliberately with a Y. And we gathered as a kind of rebellious gesture against the colonial, formal, rather staid, stuffy atmosphere of the first University of Nigeria.
Back then in university, life wasn't easy. If you weren't rich, if you didn't speak the Queen's English, if you came from the wrong tribe, you were looked down upon. It all began in early 1950s when Nigeria was still under the shadow of the colonial rule. The University of Ibadan, then called University College Ibadan, was the pride of the nation, but it carried the heavy imprint of British elitism. African students were often treated as inferior. Tribalism, class differences were everywhere, dividing young minds who were supposed to be united in learning. Then in 1952, a group of 7 daring young men decided that things had to change. They were brilliant, they were fearless and visionary, led by a 19-year-old student named Wole Soyinka. Yes, the same Wole Soyinka who later won the Nobel Prize. These 7 called themselves the Magnificent 7. They wore red caps. They created a brotherhood known as the Pirates Confraternity. Their motto was against all conventions. At first, it was noble. They fought against oppression, elitism, tribalism, injustice, and racism. They believed every man should be equal, whether rich or poor, Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa. They wanted campus life to be vibrant, free, and united. But as time passed, the idea spread. Other students admired the pirates and wanted to join them. But pirates became exclusive. They started rejecting others. And in response, students wanted to form their own confraternities. And slowly, new groups were born, like the Buccaneers and the Black Axe. And soon, rival groups were born, unlike the pirates. These new confraternities were not founded on justice, but on power, control, and influence. By the 1970s, university politics had become a battlefield. Groups clashed over supremacy. By the 1980s, cult groups had turned violent. Politicians saw an opportunity. They funded them. They protected them. They armed them. Initiations became brutal. Blindfolds, beatings, crawling through muds, drinking dangerous mixtures, even sexual assaults and secrecy bound members together. Some boys joined willingly, others were forced to join, and once you were in, leaving was almost impossible. By the 1990s, cultism has spread beyond the universities. It spread into secondary schools, onto street corners, into nightclubs, even into politics. Colors became dangerous: the red, the blue, the black, and yellow. Wearing the wrong one in the wrong area could cost you your life. Cult wars erupted in broad daylight, during exams, on the streets. Today, social media even makes it worse. Cult boys glamorize the lifestyle, posting chants, throwing hand signs, celebrating fallen soldiers as if they were heroes. And young people, they get deceived. They see brotherhood, they see protection, they see status. But in truth, it is blood. It is fear. It is trauma. It is death. Today, cultism stands as a dark shadow over Nigeria's educational system. A story of how a vision of equality and justice was corrupted into violence and fear. It started with 7 young dreamers in 1952, but decades later, it has become one of the greatest challenges facing Nigerians youth, from protest to poison, from red caps to red flags. That is the story of how cultism began in Nigeria. Thank you for watching. and I'm sure you learned something today. Kindly subscribe to my channel for more stories, and bye. See you next time.